Welcome back, Trinidad and Tobago. The politics of national security. Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar has described the plot to assassinate her and members of her cabinet as an act of treason, and she's saying she will not be deterred in her fight against the criminal elements. Opposition leader Dr. Keith Rowley, now he says the allegations or the revelation of an alleged plot to assassinate the Prime Minister is a move to extend the state of emergency. That's according to the Guardian newspaper. Before we begin our conversation with Dr. Rowley, we're going to take in a clip from the Prime Minister's press conference just to bring our discussion into context.
I am advised by the law enforcement authorities that they have, through their intelligence resources, uncovered an assassination plot against members of my government and myself. They have thwarted what was an evil, devious act of treason against the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Their actions have proven that the efforts of the government are having the desired effect. We are flushing them out. We are making it almost impossible for them to operate as they would have done in the past. The intense pressure brought to bear by our initiatives will be intensified. I will stop at nothing to return Trinidad and Tobago to the peaceful state we once enjoyed. He has accepted that offer, and Commissioner Gibbs will follow up with respect to that matter. I trust in God, and my concern remains for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So the threat to my life, yes, is of personal concern, but my greater concern is the safety and security and prosperity of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Regrettably, but inevitably, the question of an assassination plot against Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar and 3 of her cabinet ministers is now being kicked about like a political football. A report bearing the authoritative confirmation of the police commissioner and other security heads has been dismissed by opposition leader Dr. Keith Rowley as hysterical political expediency and overkill. Dr. Rowley, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning.
You're meeting with the security officials of Trinidad and Tobago. You are not satisfied that this action was justified?
Well, I am not conducting an investigation, and I am simply going on the information made available as it unfolds. And my biggest concern was not so much the fact that the police might have been investigating something that was established. The reaction and action of the Prime Minister in dealing with what in effect was an investigation in its infancy, I found that to be quite convenient, and the way it was dealt with, quite damaging to the country. And as this thing unfolds, I'm just seeing the newspapers here for the first time this morning. If the papers are to be believed, this thing becomes more curiouser and curiouser, because now RoboCop is identified as the person who's going to kill the Prime Minister. I don't know. I really don't know how to take this.
13 persons have been detained, 4 detention orders have been signed. The police must obviously have some level of intelligence which suggested that this move was necessary. In fact, yesterday, Captain Gary Griffith said the move, all of the information came from the police. They're simply acting on information and intelligence gathered. I
have no doubt that from time to time the police will conduct investigations, and they would hear things, and I'm not in a position to judge the police investigation. What I'm saying is that if in fact there's an investigation taking place that can only deliver what we have in front of us now, the real concern is squaring that with the Prime Minister's statement last Thursday, where in fact one got the impression that we had gone beyond an investigation of suspicious persons, and we were talking about motives of persons who were hit in the pocket, and they were trying to commit treason because the Prime Minister's action of this state of emergency has had this effect of bringing about a reprisal against her. Now, these things are very difficult to swallow in the face of what we have in front of us as we go forward. I would have expected that if the Prime Minister is under threat, it will be taken very seriously. This is a very serious matter, and it will be handled in a certain way as not to create hysteria, and that persons who are identified as the perpetrators would be cornered and presented to the population, not under detention without charge after a week. Maybe they might be charged later on, but the numbers are changing every day as to who is under threat, as to whether a detention. One of the questions I asked early on is, were we not under a state of emergency, which permitted detention powers to be used, how would this investigation would have been treated? Because it's very convenient that we have now available to us the powers of detention under a state of emergency. And one can only understand that these things are all falling in place so conveniently that you have to ask, why are we so lucky that they're all so convenient? You must remember, this is not an incident coming out of its own. RoboCop was arrested with great fanfare by this government spokespersons. We were given a performance, arrested for murder a few weeks ago. Now we're hearing that RoboCop, who was a major campaigner for the UNC in central Trinidad, a supporter of the Prime Minister in the last election a few months ago, is now the ringleader of a plot to assassinate her. Now, excuse me if I don't swallow this unquestioningly.
Dr. Rowley, it's no secret that Trinidad and Tobago has been identified as a drug transshipment point. In fact, yesterday, Senior Counsel Martin Daly referred to it as a narco-infiltrated state. The state of emergency has been, according to government officials, been able to achieve a measure of success as it relates to curtailing the drug trade in this country. Is it not unrealistic to expect that there would be some sort of reprisal if a dent has been made?
I don't know that all of those things are supportable in proper examination. For example, let's start with the dent in the drug trade. The figures quoted by the Prime Minister with great fanfare last Thursday are inflated. $1.5 billion in marijuana. Those are inflated figures. Secondly...
Do you know that for a fact?
Well, we've been following the estimates of marijuana. I mean, how many pounds and how many $100 million. Those are inflated figures. In any case, we have had huge cocaine busts in this country before. There was a ship that left Port of Spain that got caught in Spain on information from Trinidad and Tobago that was carrying much more cocaine than that. We had the haul down the islands. That was almost $1 billion. So it is not uncommon in Trinidad and Tobago for the drug dealers to suffer great losses. But in that business, the loss of a shipment is part of the course, is part of doing business. They expect to get some of their traffic, their goods lost. Okay, we have been accustomed to that. We are under a state of emergency, which the government has been having great difficulty in justifying, one, its coming into being, and two, its real effect. So it was very convenient for the Prime Minister, hearing about a threat to herself, to begin to use that to justify and to clarify and to provide evidence of the success of the state of emergency. That's what she did. And in doing that, coming out of her mouth, broadcast to the world that the Prime Minister is under threat of being killed by her defense force and her police service in Trinidad and Tobago. That's what the world heard. However, almost a week later, we are still talking about the police investigating and coming up with RoboCop. Excuse me if we are waiting for more concrete and solid information on this matter.
Now we're coming back to the drug trade, and all of this is being linked to the reprisal by the criminal elements. Now we will admit that there have been drug holes and there have been seizures in the past, but this has been a sustained effort on the part of the partnership. The state of emergency was declared at the end of August, September, October, November, December.
Yeah, but again,
this is a 5-month...
When the state of emergency was declared on August 21st, we were not told that this is a fight against drugs. It was a fight against gangs. It was gang warfare. We were fighting street crime, gang warfare, fight for turf, fight for rank. It is now morphing into a fight against drugs. And of course, in the same statement of the Prime Minister, we got a mouthful of how many persons were picked up for not paying child maintenance, how many persons were picked up for not paying traffic tickets. This thing is changing as we go along. This whole thing has been a fiasco. When we were told of a limited state of emergency on August 21st, it was to target gang warfare, gang problem, gang crime, gun crime in the street. It was not a fight against narco traffickers coming into Trinidad and Tobago and going out of Trinidad and Tobago. This thing is changing by the hour, and this dramatic change now of an individual being charged for murder on a 4-year-old crime and being thrown out of court within a matter of hours, now being charged or now being detained for an attempt to assassinate the Prime Minister, we have to examine the details of this. We're not going to swallow what we're being fed. And I'll tell you something. I am not impressed with people in the UNC holding up RoboCop to me as any assassin. We in the PNM campaigned against RoboCop a few months ago, and he was a frontline campaigner for the UNC Stephen Cadiz in Caroni East.
Do you know that for a fact?
For a fact, because we were campaigning against the UNC and he was up front, not just campaigning, but providing close quarters so-called security for a candidate of the UNC.
The PNM has also been accused of embracing criminal elements. That charge can be leveled against all political parties.
We're not dealing with generalities here. We're not dealing with generalities. You can show me nobody in the PNM equivalent to Robocop campaigning in our effort of the last election. We can show you, because our candidate was campaigning against Stephen Keady's last election. And one of the people in the forefront of that campaign in central Trinidad was Robocop. The next thing we hear, when the government was delivering on the gang members and the gang leaders, Robocop with great fanfare came out of One Woodbrook Place. That was supposed to be a success of a state of emergency. Our country was put under a state of emergency, delivered Robocop as a big fish. Now we're hearing our Prime Minister is to be assassinated by an assassin, and we're seeing in the papers now, Robocop. Now excuse us if we don't just swallow this unquestioningly.
Dr. Rowley, coming out of the Commission of Inquiry into the 1990 coup, a number of persons have stated that yes, we received information, didn't take the threat seriously, and their inability to act or their inability to accept the intelligence given to them by those in the security forces of Trinidad and Tobago led to that fateful day in July.
And as a result of that, we can spin any story now and just have it accepted in the fare of a coup. Understand something, and I want somebody to answer me this. If we were not under a state of emergency, how would this information have been treated? I am not saying that the police is not investigating something. It has gone past that. That investigation in its infancy triggered a prime ministerial statement to the world. That statement last Thursday by the Prime Minister went around the world, right? Where the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is under attack to be assassinated by person or persons unknown. We are waiting for the outcome of that. The outcome is not just detaining somebody. I'm sure the investigation is going to go on. Clearly, there had been overkill, over-presentation, over-dramatization, hysteria. Because you see, the threat to a head of state or a minister of government, these things happen from time to time and they must always be taken seriously. Always. Always. I'll tell you something. I was a minister of government, and on more than one occasion, the security services of this country have come to me and told me about threat to my person, coming out of the criminal element, having to do with URP and the fight over government contracts and my position taken in my constituency. More than once. To the extent where I have been shown persons who have been identified as being hired to kill me. I did my job. I didn't create hysteria in my ministry or in my household. As a matter of fact, I didn't tell my wife. Right? I had the confidence that the security services, as far as they are able to, would secure me against those ne'er-do-wells. But don't go up broadcasting to the world in the way we've done last Thursday, and then telling me this morning is Robocop on detention. We are waiting for the solid information which we expect to come, and any person who threatens the Prime Minister or conspire to kill the Prime Minister or anybody in office or any citizen will face the brunt of the law. But this has been politicized to justify a state of emergency whose objective was not described up front, and it was being used now to justify what has happened in a fiasco.
Dr. Rowley, we'll continue this conversation when we come back from this very short break. We also will be sharing with our viewers a clip from the security advisor to the Prime Minister, Captain Gary Griffith. Do stay with us. Welcome back, Trinidad and Tobago. Let's put something in perspective here. Joseph Tony has noted that an inquiry into the events of the 1990 attempted coup, he's revealed that there was intelligence and that they ought to have alerted the political directorate and the security forces to an imminent assault on the then NAR government. No one took them seriously at the time, but also be mindful that this country has also witnessed extremist acts. In 1983, 3 bombs exploded at an international conference of the Amadea movement. There also was the assassination of an ex-attorney general, Selwood Richardson, outside his home. The 1990 attempted coup, there also was a series of bombings that took place in the early 2000 period in Trinidad and Tobago. We're going to take in a clip from the security advisor, Gary Griffith, and then continue our conversation with the leader of the opposition, Dr. Keith Rowley.